All right. So, what we're going to be talking about today is IoT devices, um, mainly focusing on home stuff. Um, but I started playing around with home automation a few years ago, and just the last 6 months really kind of ramped it up when I started clicking for me, uh, and some things got pretty cheap, so I was able to get moving on. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be discussing today. Um, But so we start off with the Internet of Things. What do you think of when you think of Internet of Things? And it's basically anything connected to the internet. You know, uh, so generally when we're talking about IoT or Internet of Things, it's not going to be PCs or servers. We're talking more about little devices that, like single-purpose devices that connect to the internet to do smart things. Generally, they're sensors of some sort, and it can be things in like industrial, uh, places. They'll have IoT devices there to help with monitoring, and then even in your home, you would think of like light bulbs and temperature sensors and things like that. Uh, but when we're thinking about that with the home, and to make it, you can either have something that's easy, but it's not very secure, or you put a little bit more work into it and make it secure. And that's where you have to decide, how much do you want to be able to put a little bit of energy into it and make it extra secure, or just go with the convenient selections out there. So that's what I want to do is talk to you about how to make it secure, and without a whole lot of work, you can have your own light bulbs and stuff in your house you can control. Um, so yeah. So the thing with it being convenient is that somebody else controls those devices. They control your data related to those devices. And so what I'm talking about is the cheaper it gets, then they remove the local administration part of the device and make it all connect out to the cloud. So things like Philips, the Hughes bulbs, a lot of the Apple HomeKit stuff, Google Home, all Chromecast, that's all internet based. And then even to the ultra cheap like Tuya uh, and the smart home, those are Chinese, extra cheap. It's like $4 a bulb for a smart bulb, but they they do whatever they can to keep you from controlling it at home, and that's what we want to get away from. We want to get it out of the cloud, um, and but why do we want to do that? Right. So we were talking about that they're controlling the data. Um, so if they're controlling it, they have to secure it. And how much do you rely on them securing it? And how much do you trust that they're going to keep it secure? Uh, there's breaches all the time with people stealing passwords and getting in, and if you have your cameras that are strictly cloud based, it's nice and convenient because you can look at it on your phone, you can see everything. But if somebody else has compromised either the services servers or your password or something, then they can also see those cameras, and you want to, that's not a good thing, especially if it's inside your house. The other thing that happens is that you get the those devices can be hacked, and they become parts of botnets where they're out there attacking other people. You're using your internet connection, uh, and becoming, DDoS sources, uh, and that's not a good. You want to be a good medicine and avoid having those things. All right. So what can we do? Well, the first thing is you're unable to if you're unable to remove it from the cloud, and it's strictly cloud-based, then you want to make sure you install the firmware patches and make sure that whatever you can do is choose devices that have a good reputation for cloud security. But again, how much do you really trust them controlling that? And then they're going to be collecting data about you. And then what do they do with it? Right? They're going to be seeing when every time you turn lights on and off or open your doors, you know, and you think, oh, somebody can see a light turning on and off, or maybe they might, if somebody hacks in, they might turn off my light. But if they can tell if you're gone for more than a few days, then they know that your house might be vulnerable. So what we want to look at is we want to limit those devices from accessing the internet, and limit to the point where either don't allow them at all, and keep local control of all your devices. To be able to do that, then you also need to be able to self-host your own cloud instance, and you can use that. You can use a Raspberry Pi or an old laptop or server, and just have it running in your house. And you can use local protocols to be able to connect to those devices and control it all from inside your house. And with doing that, then you're taking control of your data and not allowing other people to do that. So taking control, you could replace firmware on some devices. If they're ESP-based devices, then you can replace that firmware with Tasmota or ESPHome. And I would say that's probably one of the most popular chips out there that are embedded into these IoT devices. And wow, what you can do is that it gives you the internet access. You can build your own. So I have a Node MCU with a low temperature sensor on it, and the chip on it itself that does all the smarts, the microcontroller, is an ESP-based chip. So this one is a ESP12, which is the 8266, I believe. Yeah, 8266 chip. And it's very simple to plug in USB right into your computer. You use a program to just upload the firmware. And Tasmota makes it very easy to be able to control it. And then it has connections into multiple home automation systems that can use it to be able to run. And what I like using is HomeAssistant. So moving forward, that's what we're going to be talking about mostly. But so the ESP based is going to be Wi-Fi. So you can connect to your Wi-Fi and do all local networking with that. There's other kinds of local communication that's Zigbee or Z-Wave. Those are both really good protocols for running your devices. And they're both very popular. You can find them on Amazon or at your local electronic stores and stuff. So think about HomeAssistant. So HomeAssistant is a home automation system. It's where you can do self-hosting, and you flash it onto an SD card, put it into a Raspberry Pi, and then that's really the only requirements. Raspberry Pi. So I have a Pi 3. I'm not sure if you guys can see my camera, but I'm holding up. It's a Pi 3 with a Zigbee dongle, USB dongle plugged into it, and this would allow me to do all of my home automation that I'm using. So, and all the Wi-Fi devices across the network, and then all the Zigbee devices from this little USB dongle. But HomeAssistant is multi-vendor protocol, multi-protocol. So you can have a Philips bulb, you can have a a globe bulb. Like I have a globe bulb here that I flashed Tasmota onto. Um, you can do lots of different things, and then there's lots of plugins. So it's plugin support, add-on support, so you can really extend the use of this, and uh, and it's really fun to play with. Um, Everybody can still hear me, right? I go into this screen, and I want to make sure that I'm still being seen. Yeah, looks like it's working. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Um, started over. All right. So setting it up, you can set it up on a Raspberry Pi or Docker image. But if you go over to their website, there's all sorts of installation methods. It doesn't have to be a Raspberry Pi. I know they've gotten pretty hard to use or to find at this point. Super easy to use. I was demonstrating, so I did this talk at OLF a month ago, and I did it off of my Pi 3 here, and I was able to control a couple things simple. It works well. My home automation that I'm running right now at home is on a Pi 4 with a dongle. I can't grab that and show you because it's actually plugged in and running right now. But it's really easy to use. And the screenshot I have on here is what it found as soon as it installed and came up. It already found my Zigbee device. It found devices already plugged in or on the Wi-Fi. I have some Philips Whiz bulbs that it automatically just sucked it in, and I could start controlling them right away. And then there's all sorts of other plugins that you can add. So I have Chromecast devices, and so I was able to just pull it right in. So the detection of items are really nice. So yeah. When I'm talking about local communication, as I mentioned before, we're talking about over the network or Wi-Fi or using Zigbee or Z-Wave. And then there's this mosquito protocol, MQTT. It actually started up with industrial devices, and they needed a way to be able to communicate back and forth reliably. So it's a very robust protocol and that one runs across Wi-Fi, at least the way that I'm using it, and the way we use it with HomeAssistant. So it crossed the network, and it's little message back and forth saying turn on, turn off. Here's the temperature. Here's that. Zigbee is an open protocol that is maybe it's not an open protocol. It's just not licensed. It's usually less expensive for devices to run Zigbee because it doesn't have to pay for the license fee. And it's a local communication over, I think it's 2.4 gigahertz, and it does mesh networking, so it's really nice. You put what I did is I put my HomeAssistant in the middle of my basement, and then you just put devices throughout the house, and they mesh from one to the next to the next. So you don't have to worry about the radio wave having to get from the furthest device all the way to your HomeAssistant. All it has to do is get from that light bulb over to the next light bulb, or over to a switch, or a smart switch or something like that. And that just extends the network going out. So what I do is in my basement, I have a couple lights that are always on. It's always powered on. So I just went through and plugged in a couple of these Zigbee bulbs throughout my basement, and that just meshes the entire house. Then anything else upstairs with Zigbee will just connect to any of those devices and mesh through and communicate properly. Z-Wave is another local protocol. It's It's wireless, and it runs over 900 megahertz. So if you think of like the old wireless phones, 900 megahertz, you can get pretty far. I remember going out, you know, twice the length of the house and the phone's still working. You know, being out in the yard and stuff. So that has a pretty good reach, um, and it has a good way to be able to securely communicate to each other. So these are the main protocols that we're going to be using with these devices. And if you can look up, like when you go to buy it, if it says it's a Zigbee device or Z-Wave, then you know it's going to work with HomeAssistant. Most of them, when you are looking for those devices, most of them are going to say it requires a hub, but you don't have to buy like the Philips hub or the whatever hub. You can use your HomeAssistant to run it, and that's your hub. So replacing the firmware with these ESP devices. So you'll have a light bulb or something that has an ESP chip in it, and you can go through and replace that firmware with your own. And what you can do is there's some super cheap bulbs that are Chinese Tuya bulbs, and it uses, or you can go over the Wi-Fi to connect to it and stuff, but you have to use their app. So their app doesn't give you the permission to be able to replace the firmware. So there's this program called Tuya Convert, and that will allow you to replace the firmware. And really what it does is it does a exploit against the firmware where you can, where it hacks into it and then allows you to replace the firmware. And it automatically does the upload the firmware, it reboots it. When it reboots it, it comes into the Tuya format, or the Tasmota firmware. And if that's not working, or if your device has pins on it where you can connect into it with serial port, then you can replace the firmware over serial. And that one, the program to use there is called, the one I use is called Tasmotizer. And as long as there's a serial port that you can connect to it, it'll do, it'll connect to it, it'll replace the firmware. When it boots back up, you start controlling. So the screenshots I have on here is Globe CCC. That is my light bulbs. They're Globe branded. When I replace the firmware, then it comes up, and I can control the brightness and the temperature of the bulb.
One quick question, Tony. Is that a application or is that a web page?
The screenshot that we're looking at right here is a web page.
It's a web page. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So you connect directly to it, and it's a web server running on there, and it has the ability to go in there and make some configuration changes. By default, Tasmota doesn't know what the device is that you loaded onto, so it's not going to know how to turn it on or off, or how to. So you have to go to their website and you find a template. It calls it a template. It's a string of characters that you can paste in, and then it'll go through and configure everything you need for it. If there is no template, then you can go through and manually set up the module, because what the ESP device is really just a series of I/O ports, and there's a serial ports on it. So you could say, okay, on this pair we have a switch. On this pair we have a temperature sensor. So you can so like on this node MCU, I just basically put on there, said this is the one thing, this is the temperature sensor. But in the screenshot what we're looking at here is a light bulb.
Richard L., you have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what am I doing with my ESP8266? I'm confused. I've been posting a few questions in the chat.
Oh, sorry. I've got my full screen going, so I can't see the chat. So the ESP, the 8266, is just the chip here. The Node MCU is the full base here. You replace the firmware. So traditionally, the ESP devices, you would use Arduino to program them. And with Arduino, you can program a web server. You can program, what I/O ports to do these things on it. So, and that's really what I had bought this for. Is I was going to do Arduino on it with a temperature sensor, and then figure out somehow to get it to connect to my Home Assistant. Well, when I learned about Tasmota, it's a simple firmware upgrade or upload to it. I did it across serial because it has with the USB device on here. It's a serial port on the on Linux. I replace the firmware as soon as it comes up. It's ready to go. Meaning that I can just say now on these ports we're going to do the thermostat or the temperature sensor, and then we go into the MQTT sensor or settings. I say now connect to my Home Assistant. As soon as it connects to the Home Assistant, then the Home Assistant says, hey, there's a new device. It's a temperature sensor. We're good to go. Where with Arduino, you'd have to program in the MQTT and a lot of other things. So Tasmota has made it very simple to be able to get some of these advanced features.
I have one of those from Penguicon, the ESP8266 Node MCU with the temperature sensor. Yes, exactly.
We were probably in the same class. It was what Penguicon 16 or something, 2016, or maybe it was before that, 2012. I don't know. But yeah, that's where I got this, and it sat in my on my shelf forever because I couldn't get all the dependencies for Arduino to work right and what I was trying to program up. And then with me finding Tasmota, and within 5 minutes, I had this running on it and connected to my Home Assistant.
What am I controlling from? My Linux box?
The what?
Where am I controlling my lights? Or I'm reading
sure.
temperature sensor from somewhere from my Linux box?
Yeah, on the Linux box, you're going to program. Well, you'll install Home Assistant onto it. And that's what I'll get into more. But you'll install Home Assistant on there, and from within Home Assistant, and there's a add-on for the MQTT server. Then you can go through and tell it just connect to your Home Assistant server or Linux box. You're not going to run it specifically like on your laptop. They're on your general purpose computer. Home Assistant's going to be a single purpose, setup. So it's that's why it's really nice to run it on a Raspberry Pi because it's a single purpose setup. But like I said, if you have a spare laptop, you can run it on that. It doesn't take a whole lot of processor power to run it.
Jim P., you had a question.
Yeah. Tony, I was wondering, it sounds, if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like the software is a protocol handler that handles communication between the Raspberry Pi and your devices. And then you have templates that plug in to handle the hardware. Is that right? Like templates that people have written?
Well, the template is more the settings of which I/O port does what. So do these two I/O ports connect to the temperature sensor, or for a light bulb, do these the serial ports connect over to another microchip that will control the light bulb?
Okay,
and that's the base for most Tuya devices, is that they have another little microcontroller on there that controls all the LEDs on the light bulb.
Okay, so I'm thinking of probably a smarter device, a home camera that watches for movement and then makes recordings if it senses movement. Would I be looking for some kind of template that would handle that, or how would I make that open source?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know how much if Tasmota would work for home or for cameras. Um, I'd have to Google it, but
Okay.
there's other servers and stuff you can have your cameras connect to. Home Assistant will also connect to a camera, but it doesn't quite give you the like. I have a camera in my garage that I'm showing. I'm now showing my Home Assistant setup here. The camera in my garage is showing the front door. If I didn't have as much stuff in it, you'd probably clearly see the person trying to walk into the front door here. But it does an automatic refresh just to view it, but it doesn't do any. Right now, it doesn't do any setup or alerting or recording based on that. So you'd have to have some other system for home for camera system or something.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is my Home Assistant that I'm running right now. The overview page, I put a couple of my main things that I'm looking at. When I see the weather coming up, so you can use either a built-in weather app, or I've set up the connection to dark. It's been so long that since I set it up, dark weather, dark something, and it looks pretty. So
Dark sky.
Dark sky, yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the API has gone away, but you can use pirate weather as a replacement.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it continues to work, so maybe they're just not doing new API connection.
March 2023 is when it goes away.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Apple.
I'll have to make my change soon then. I have my thermostat for my house, so it's set 71 degrees. You know what? It's a little chilly. I can just bump this up a little bit. It's not quite as pretty as a Nest, but it is. You can control it. You can set schedules. You can remotely control it from anywhere that you can connect to your Home Assistant app. So I have a VPN running on my phone and on my laptop here, so I could VPN in from a remote place and say, you know what, I'm not going to be home for a week. I can drop this down, or whatever. I can set that for the week before, and then I can put in a schedule saying that I know I'm coming back at a certain time. Turn the heat up, a few days or a few hours before I get home. We have, you see this has Amazon packages here in the middle. It's another add-on that it checks your email, and and anytime Amazon sends you an email about a delivery, it'll update you and saying how many packages do you have in the mix, how many are being delivered, and then the little picture they send. Once something's delivered that day, it'll show the picture here. And then what I did is then I had this connected in with an automation saying whenever something is delivered, then on my Chromecast say, hey, an Amazon package has been delivered. So that's been pretty neat. And my kids love it. They're like, oh, Amazon package, let's go get it. It's funny. And then I have a garage door opener that I can open the garage door with this. I can hit, as I open the garage door, it shows me how it's opening. It was actually the garage door opener itself was a cheap Tuya device, and I couldn't replace the firmware with Tasmota because the chip they're using wasn't ESP based, but it was close enough where the pins pinned out the same. So I actually bought just the chip, the ESP32, and desoldered it and soldered it back on. I know that's probably a little more work than what most people are going to want to do, but it's something I have control over now, and now I can control my garage door without having without it going out to the cloud. So if I click this here, it says the garage door is opening. And then we see on my camera here, the garage door light came on, and the door is going to open partially. I say partially because actually the spring is broken on the door, so it's not going to open all the way. And then so I'll hit it again, and then it should shut for us. Yeah, there we go. Now it's shut. It has a sensor on there, so it reports back to say when the garage door is either open or closed. And then I get a notification on my phone saying that the garage door has opened, or the garage door has closed. I'm not sure if you guys can see it on here, but it says open or closed. And you can do notifications with automations. So it's like if this happens, then do this. So it's if the garage door opens, send a notification. If the garage door is open for more than 30 minutes, send another notification. Things like that. I have smart switches. They're smart plugs where, say we go back to the home page here, I have my washer and dryer on a smart plug. And what I'm doing here is I can see that whenever I'm using more than, like, say, 3 watts of power, then my, I have an automation set up to say, hey, thank you for starting the wash. I'm thinking that's going to help with the spousal approval. And then whenever the dryer wash is done, then I have another automation that says, hey, the washer's done. So you can remember to go and, and switch the loads.
How is it implemented, just for curiosity's sake?
I use it's a smart switch.
Okay.
It's a Sonoff.
Because I know our washer has some kind of little proprietary dingus that you can hook up so it can tell you elsewhere outside of its lovely little chirp.
Right. Yeah, we get the chirp too, but this actually works well. And then in your automation, you can say if it's after 9 p.m., don't say the automations. That way it doesn't wake up the kids in the middle of the night if I'm up doing laundry. But it's this little device here that if you get this is showing, it looks identical to this. This is showing the light version for the Zigbee, but they have a Wi-Fi version that has the power sensing, power management, and it built into it. The light version doesn't have that, but it's still a smart switch. You can turn things on and off. So I have a automation that when I leave my house, I have a little RFID tag that I can tap my phone to it, and then it says all my motion sensors that I have in the house will then notify me if it sees any kind of motion. So it's kind of like a cheap, home-built alarm system. But then with that, I can also put in the, it shuts power off my garage door, so nobody can accidentally or come by and try to steal the code to open the door, or if they were try to hack into things, you do simple automations like that. Light bulbs. I have all sorts of light bulbs hooked up to my house. Throughout the basement, I have it set up that if I start walking around, it'll turn lights on and off. This one, if I wave my hands, should see my motion. Yep, there goes. I just turned on the lights in my basement. I have this, I call it a light bar, but it's a LED light strip. Let's see if I can pull it out. I put it in in a tube, so then it gets a little bit of a thing. But it's a light strip. You can go through and change the colors on it. Just things to play with. So a lot of these, it's fun to play with. But then really, the things that I think help the most is it's having automation for the walking through the basement, turning on lights, being able to open, shut my garage door, or be able to remotely see if the door is closed. I have this switch on my workbench, and and then it's going to tell me how much power I'm using with that, or I have an extension plug that goes to my truck. So for the engine block warmer, I can see how much power I'm actually pulling related to that. So it can really help out with giving you some information. They have media kind of connections. So I have my Plex server connected in here. It tells me when I'm listening or playing or somebody else is. I have my Chromecast devices. I can go through and individually start things playing on each of these Chromecasts right from within HomeAssistant, or I can go in there and tell it to say something. So like in my office one here. Yeah, you can say text to speech. I'm not sure if the speaker can bring that up or if you can hear it. But it'll go through and it'll say, that you say something. So, and it's not saying it at this point. I don't know what's going on there. It's not a failure. I have my my firewall is connected in here, so I can tell how much how much power used, or I can track the bandwidth usage. I have an automation set up. Whenever my WAN goes down, then it'll alert me. I set that up because I was having some issues at one point where my VPN kept on dropping to work. So I said, you know what? Have it alert me so I can see what's going on. My power went out today. I almost couldn't do the presentation. I was out for over a half hour. And that was 5 hours ago. So, that's when it came back up. I can go through and tell the kids, oh, no more internet. You need to start doing some homework. And, I could do that from my firewall itself, which I could do it, but I was the only person that could do that. Now with having this connected in the HomeAssistant, my wife can bring it up on her phone and be able to turn that on or off, stop things from working. And then you can set up different dashboards. So I have one just set of lights, and this is what my kids have control over. They can go through and click the party mode, and they'll start flashing all the lights like we're having a party. I have the Christmas tree was on here, and my workbench. The workbench used to be my outside Christmas lights, so I could go in here and look to see how much power it was using. This one, clicking here, it just shows us when it's been turned on or off. But from another screen, I was able to see how much power I was using. So it's a lot of fun. If we go down here to settings and then to devices control, this would be where you're going to go through and add devices. So we have integrations, and this gives you setup where you can add individual Zigbee devices, or if you have other protocols or devices, we have all these other kind of systems that it can connect to. Either it'll do it locally, or as we see on some of these icons, they're cloud-based. So it would still have to connect out to the cloud. And for security, we really don't want that. So I'm thinking we stay away from there. But it does give you the ability to be able to connect to a lot of different things. So what kind of questions do we have?
Feel free to use the raise hand function, or go ahead and unmute yourself. Richard, yes, please go ahead.
A few questions in chat. So is 192.168.4.1 your local MCU device or your dedicated Linux box?
It's a dedicated box. Yeah, it's a Raspberry Pi that only does HomeAssistant. So I flashed it with the HomeAssistant, or did the Raspberry Pi image onto the SD card, popped it in there, and I don't know, 10 minutes later, was a fully functioning HomeAssistant server. All administration is done through the web. There used to be a lot of sections where you'd have to go into the file editor and do some YAML config updates. You can still do that in here, but it also, or what they've been pulling most of that out and making it a UI or a GUI version to be able to go through and control things. So the Home Assistant part, you want it to be a dedicated machine with a dedicated IP address, and it talks over port 8123, and then so we connect to that, and it's all web based. You can go in and add. It's called an add-on, but you can turn on SSH. You can turn on other services. So in my add-ons, I have SSH turned on, but I can also come in here and have just a web-based SSH client, and I can connect into that. I have so this is the mosquito broker, or the service that's running that will accept all my IoT, MQTT messages. And then there's an add-on called Tasmota Admin. And what this is it's a web UI that's running on the Raspberry Pi. And this connects over to, and this is how I control all my Tasmota devices. So I can go in here and actually like this list view better. We can see all the IP addresses of each of them. There's a way to run one command against all of them to make it change something. So if I have to change the MQTT server IP address, I can do that once here, and it pushes it out to all of them. Or like the other day, I did a firmware upgrade. After testing it on one or two of them, I said, hey, I'm happy with it. It's going to work correctly. And I did a push to all of them saying run this command, and it goes out and pulls the latest firmware and then does the upgrade, and then a few minutes later it's ready to go. We can also click straight on them to bring up the web UI to be able to control or to configure each one. So this is one of my light bulbs. We have a switch, and I think this is on my washer. It'll tell us how much power it's using, voltage, and all of these settings here, or these values that we're seeing here, is available in Home Assistant. So it's rare that you have to connect to the web itself, except for if you want to make some kind of configuration change, or if you're doing some kind of testing. And you really don't want to use the web so much, or this web UI, because it's kind of slow. It's a really low-powered device. The ESP device, and MQTT is faster, so it can send MQTT messages from here to Home Assistant. Home Assistant will then update quicker than usually what this will update. And it's just because of the web server running. But of those templates, what I was talking about is, I guess I didn't have it on here. I was looking for my garage door opener. I guess I didn't add it into here. But what it would do is it would tell me what ports it was using. So this one is that temp sensor. This is the Node MCU. I think if you get this whole setup here, the Node MCU and the temperature sensor, I think it's $12 on Amazon for an individual one. If you buy 10 of them at a time, the price drops to like $6 or something, depending on how many you want to buy. But we can go into the configuration, and we look at the module here, and this is telling me here on GPIO2, that's where my DHT11 is connected, and that's that temp sensor, and the WPM is connected. We can go back. if you want to use those templates, so there's different templates you can choose from here. Or this is actually where you would edit a template. But what I was talking about is like where you can add in this this set of characters here, the config code. You can just paste it in here, hit activate and save, and it would go through and push all those changes to this, or set the configuration for it to work. And what you would do is you go to the Tasmota website. And so it's templates.blackadder. And you go through here and find your device. So if you have a Shelly device, or if you have Sonos, here's a Sonos switch, here's other air quality sensors, smart strips. Come in here and you find your device. And then you click on it, and then it'll take you in here, and it'll show here is that configuration template that you can copy and paste into your Tasmota. So it's like I said, you have convenience or security. So I would say this is very secure, with some convenience that you don't have to go through and write your own Arduino code. And there's a lot of brand name devices on here that you can go through and buy and you buy or use. You can look, on the left here, you can look everything up by device types, or you can buy them. Like if you say, you know what, flashing it itself, I don't really want to deal with that. You can buy devices with it on here. So Cloud Free is a popular brand that you can look for. Anthem is another one that I've been told that works really well, and it has Tasmota built right in, so it's all local communication, and works well with with HomeAssistant. That's what I tested on, and I know works well. But if we go into the configuration here, HomeAssistant uses MQTT, so anything else that uses MQTT, you can do that. There's this Bemus. Never used that, but it's another way to be able to configure it and use that. So yeah, and then there's even a command line. We can go into the console and we can give it individual commands. So on my switches, my smart plugs, I had to go in and tell it to update quicker. So it's to update equals 10 or something like that. And, you look up the commands, and it's very easy to do. So my temp sensor is right next to me, 20 degrees Celsius in here. In my HomeAssistant, you can. I think do I have it in here? Yeah, it actually was sitting in my garage. I brought it down to my basement so I can use it in here. But we can see this was the temp. We can see in my garage, it was, it was in the 30s until I unplugged it, brought it into my basement, and now it's up in the 70s. And we could see that little bit where it's offline. It's my power outage today. And what I'm doing is I actually bought, and the reason I knew the prices for some of these Node MCUs in the temp sensor is that I just bought 10 of them because I'm going to go through and set up the sensors for my freezer that's in the garage. So I have a refrigerator, so I'll need 2 sensors, one for the fridge and one for the freezer. And then I can tell, is it staying cold? And it's not something I have to check on all the time. Like if you had a little thermostat you put inside, or temperature sensor you put inside your fridge, how do you tell 10 hours ago what was the temp? Where this will give us a nice graph. And there's also a history section, so we can go through and say and and we can go through and say what was the dew point, what's the humidity, here's the temperature, and it gives us a graph, and we can choose exact dates. So for doing a lot of this, it makes it really easy. So in my garage for the last, since the beginning of the year, this is how the temperatures were fluctuating. And is there any other questions?
It looks like you got several of them. I'm not sure who came first. I'm going to say Richard probably went first, and then board@mug.org, which I think is the Jim. So go ahead, Richard.
What was it showing from your Pixel 4 XL? That's a cell phone.
Yeah, the Pixel XL. Yeah, that was actually my old phone. And when you add the app to your phone, it actually takes and you give it permissions, and it can turn on all sorts of things within your phone. It'll monitor things within your phone to be able to, add them as they call it entities in Home Assistant. So you can have Home Assistant alert you if your phone is overheating or the battery's getting low. Uh, Another popular thing people do with it is your location tracking. Not specifically to track your location, but more is, are you within so close to your house? Then you say, when I get to my house, I want you to turn on the lights, or I want you to open the garage door as I'm pulling in the driveway. You can have it automatically do a lot of those things. I don't have that enabled, but it's possible to do that. And then the hard part is to be able to get that to be able to work. You have to have either VPN all the time with your phone connected into your house, or have your Home Assistant available from the outside. They have what they call a cloud component to Home Assistant, where you pay for a service, and then it allows you to Nabucasa is the company that builds Home Assistant, and they have this service that will then connect it through. So your phone is available, or your Home Assistant's available on your phone, or however your connection is, from anywhere in the world. I haven't heard anything bad about it, about them being hacked. I don't know much about it, but I don't have a need for it, so I don't have that set up. Anyway, so if we were, where you saw that is we go into devices, and we can see. I'm pretty sure it was on this list of mobile apps, or maybe it was from my screenshot was showing it. But here's the other phones or devices we have set up.
Jim, you got a question?
Yeah, I do. If Tony's ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any ability to do voice recognition or voice control for devices?
There is some. There is plugins to be able to connect out to Alexa and Google Home, so you can talk to your Chromecast or your speaker. So I just have a Google Home speaker thing. There's a way to be able to connect it. And again, you're connecting out to the cloud. Is that secure? So I don't do that.
Sure. Well,
there's for Mycroft, there's a plug-in to be able to connect a Mycroft in. So if you have a Mycroft, or you can build your own with a Raspberry Pi. It's called Pycroft.
Okay.
So I set that up, and it works somewhat. It always was kicking off, and I was having kind of issues with it. But if so it doesn't work quite as well as with the control.
Yeah, I have the first generation Mycroft, and it's sitting in a box right now, unfortunately, because the OS aged out after a while, and I haven't convinced myself that I need the Mycroft 2 quite yet.
Right.
We've got a couple of Google hubs and some smart switches and some lights, and my wife just loves it. She's very change averse, but when I put that in and showed her how she can turn the lights on and off with her voice, game changer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Google Play, there's an app called Home Assistant. Yep. So that's the app. And what the app does is it connects to your Home Assistant running in the house. So you can't run it off of your phone itself. Or if you had like an Android device, you're thinking, I want to run this as the server. It's not going to work like that. What this does is it gives you the same dashboard, but but in phone friendly use. But then, like I said, it also enables those entities, which are all the individual sensors and stuff that's on your phone, um, that you can connect through into Home Assistant. So the question was about entities. Is an entity an attached IoT device? So within Home Assistant, there's actually two options, or so there's two setups. So there's an integration which helps control and set up those entities and devices. The device is going to be the main item, like my dryer plug. My dryer plug is the device. Within the dryer plug has the entities. So here it's showing all these different entities, and these are all the different values we can get off of that plug. So we can get, current power, current energy, current, the current, amperage, wattage, voltage, and then how much was used throughout that day. When was the last reboot? There's a lot of different things you can get. So here's diagnostics. You can get what is the SSID that you're connected to, how much, how strong is the signal. So there's all sorts of. So these are the individual entities. Uh, a lot of times you're going to have one device has one entity, or you can see like that one has many entities. Um, with my firewall, when it's set up, it pulled in like 300 entities because each sensor or each thing within uh, PFSense is an entity. So just your WAN interface is an entity. Your WAN IP address, your WAN, and each interface has all those different entities. Each firewall rule you have uh, within your firewall has an entity. I'm not going to connect on it I'm not going to click straight into it since we're being recorded here. I don't want to go through all that. So here's all the Tasmota devices. So this is how it's set up within, within Home Assistant, and we can see the different makers for each of them, whether it's a generic. So for my temp sensor, it's a Node MCU, so it just calls it generic. There's no real brand name to it. My plugs are all Sonoff devices. Or not all. I'm sorry, rather they're Zigbee devices. It shows a Zigbee icon here for Zigbee devices. So things like that. And then you can look either by device or by entity. So it has lots of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of entities. Just go on forever. There's a search feature. You can sort. And then you can have helpers. These are more like virtual entities, where I created light groups within this helper section. So I could say, group all my basement lights in the utility room. I have 4 light bulbs in there. Instead of having to control them all individually, I created this light group, and now I can use it one click to be able to turn them all up or down, or turn them all on or off. You can choose. So one of these, I changed the state, or I changed the type of device. So instead of having it being a switch, I'm telling Home Assistant with this helper to say, change my washroom light to make it a light bulb instead of a switch. And then Home Assistant looks at it a little bit different. Or you can, if you have multiple audio devices within your house, you can make a whole house group, and you can push one voice command or something, or voice notification out to all the speakers at once. I actually, so I use Chromecast for these, and it's not working as well as I thought it would. Chromecast is very chatty, and when I start doing that, like if I try to play a song across all my Chromecast devices, it actually takes down my Wi-Fi. It's so chatty, and I'm using Unify access points, so they're somewhat beefy. You know, I can run hundreds of devices on it, but as soon as Chromecast starts doing its thing, it starts being, it starts taking down my network. Anyway, so yeah.
There's a question in the chat. How would I change the color or a color changing LED light bulb?
Sure. So if we, so there's a couple different ways. The main way is you click right on the name of the device. So we can see here on this, we have, these are all my different lights. You can click on the light itself. You can either turn it on or off, turn the brightness up or down. So you can see the light behind me. I can make brighter, or I can dim it down, or I can turn it off completely. With these are the lights I have are down here are just white lights, but you can bring up the temp, and then you can bring up the brightness, and then you can change the temp. So if it's all blue, or you can make it down to like the warm yellowish look. And you can see the numbers that's changing. So these are in Kelvin. So it's what you would look like on the bulb, on the package of the bulb. So this one says it can go from 2000 up to 63, 65, 35. And that's that temperature look. To be able to change those colors, so on my light bar, bring it up here, and you can come in here and choose the colors from here. And we can have it change those colors. So this is the color chooser that HomeAssistant uses. This specific light strip that I have does color, and you can also do white with temperature changes. But I've already demonstrated the white, so you can see that. And then I have, that one's turned on. I do have one other color bulb connected in right now. I have a bunch of Tuya bulbs, but those all require cloud connection, and you have to go through this crazy setup to get an API key from the Tuya developer website. It only works for a year, and then you have to start paying for it. I said it's not worth paying for it, so I don't have those connected to my HomeAssistant right now. But it is possible if you want to go through that process. And within the Tuya website, developer's website, you have to sign up as a developer. You go through and you create what they call create an app, and then from there you get an API key, and then you come in here to HomeAssistant, and there's a an integration for Tuya. So there's the Tuya Cloud integration. There's also Tuya Local integration, but that is also not very easy to use. You have to get like the individual API keys for every single light bulb to be able to set that up, and it still doesn't work all that great. So the best way to do is to be able to reflash it to Tasmota. My issue I'm having with those is because Tuya had updated the firmware on all the bulbs, and now that Tuya Convert, I said it was doing like a exploit on it that no longer works. So what I'm trying to do is actually desolder the chip on it and put a MC or a ESP chip on there, and I'm so close to getting it working. but it's not. I have a pin not soldered in right or something. It's not coming up right for me right now. So that's kind of like at the far range of this. How much convenience to security do you want to go? Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys could see my camera, but this is the inside of one of those light bulbs, and I went through and replaced the chip. This is what was there, and then I tried soldering in one, but like I said, it's not quite there yet. But it's something if you like doing hardware hacking, this is fun to do because it's like real world usage, right? You can get Tasmota running on the chip, then you can get it hooked into your home assistant, and then go from there. Is Plex server running on a Linux box? It is. That's a whole separate server I have running over there. It's a dual hex core Xeons. It sucks so much power. It's bad, but it's very performant, and I use it all the time. So I have the live TV with a device hooked up. Um, what is it called? Home Run, HD Home Run. Is my tuner on it, and it goes through and records. So the weather report, you can see these on what kind of things I watch from over the air. I have my music, home videos, things like that. But within here in the media, I can see who's running or how much is something playing or not, and then where is it playing. So on our main TV upstairs, I can see when the kids are playing something. You can also plug or hook up Roku TVs, Roku devices in here. There's a plug-in for that. I found for Raspberry Pi, I don't know exactly what it's doing, but it's tasking it a little too much. My automation starts slowing down, so I don't have that running on here. But if you were to run if you have at least a dual-core laptop or better, an i5 or something running, then I'm sure that would be well powered enough to be able to do all sorts of fun automations. I'm saying that I'm doing a lot of simple automations. It's just like if this happens, is there motion on the light, on the sensor, turn on the light bulb. You can get them really extensive automations. And there's a way to be able to integrate in Node-RED. And so if you're a whiz at Node-RED, you could do all sorts of exciting automations within Home Assistant. And the same thing with the dashboard. So this is a basic dashboard that you can add in each of these items. They're called cards in Home Assistant. You can add different cards to see things. But you can get a lot of exciting things. And there's so much community support. You'd be like, how do you set this up? Like I wanted to set up my UPS. And ever since my power outage, my UPS didn't come back online. But if it was online, then I'd be able to see how much power my network rack is pulling and everything. And it's generally sitting about 600 watts.
Hey, Tony, we have a question from Dale.
Sure.
Go ahead, Dale.
Could you speak a little about high availability, disaster recovery? What do you lose if your Raspberry Pi that's running Home Assistant dies?
I don't know much about that. I know there is a way. So every time you do a major change, you can go in and do backups. Anytime there's a update to Home Assistant, which actually happens almost weekly, they push out an update. It'll go through and you can do backups. The update will automatically do a backup. So if an update fails or has an issue, you can revert. As for high availability, like having active devices, I don't think that's fully supported I don't know of anybody doing that actively. But what I was like working out in my mind how to do it is to be able to have like a federated way to do it. So you can have with MQTT have it send uh, messages from one home assistant to another. So you can have like a dispersed out to multiple buildings and then have them all connect into one main like hub kind of thing. I suppose that would be possible, but I haven't really gotten into seeing how that would actually work, and I haven't really seen anybody out there doing it yet. I'm not
So
a home system expert. I just this is what I've been playing with over the last year or so.
yes. So you mentioned that you had motion sensors that would turn on the lights in the basement.
Correct.
If Home Assistant died, are you left in the dark with no way to turn on lights?
No, actually. So they're still on a switch. So you walk
Okay.
into, if I walk into the room and the lights are all off, and my home assistant went offline for some reason or died, then the default setting for the light bulbs is whenever they go from no power to being powered on, the default setting is to turn on. So, and that's the other spousal approval that I have set up, that if something happens, she could just shut the lights off or shut the switch off and turn it back on, and then they all come on like normal. And they, if you
Okay.
have no automation working, uh, say it died for weeks or whatever, you can still just use the regular light switch to turn it on and off.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's actually some really neat devices uh, that it's made by the Shelly brand or Shelly company, and there's a few others that are like it, where it's a tiny little device that you set inside your light switch box, and you wire it to that. And then what it does is it is like it has a relay and a couple sensor switch that you plug into it, or that you wire your switch actually to that. And then the Shelly will then see when you turn it on, then it does a smart thing to say turn on the light. You turn it off, and then it says shut off. And so what you can do is have your switch. It can be a regular switch with the Shelly. You can switch it on, and then it actually communicates back to Home Assistant. Then the Home Assistant says, "Hey, he just turned the switch on. Now do this," and that this thing could be turn on the lights in this room. Again, you have the chance of running where Home Assistant's not going to work. So they've with Tasmota, there are now device groupings that you can do. So as long as the Wi-Fi is working, they're all connected to Wi-Fi, then what it'll do is they can communicate back and forth within each other. So I can say group this Shelly with all the lights in this room, and then whenever I hit the switch on, it automatically goes out and says turn on those lights. So that's like a backup method in case your home assistant were to go down. And I think within the Shelly, it's smart enough that you can do different modes. So you could say if I just flip it on, turn the lights on. If I do a on off, then do something different, And I think that on off you can program it to say now just whenever, just automatically kill the power or turn it on, just like a regular switch would. So that can be your backup method.
Any other questions out there? Yes, Richard, go ahead.
So what were you doing with your Roku device?
What do I do? So we have it set up, to be able to stream there. What did I do within Home Assistant? You can have it in there to say what device or what app is running on the Roku. So I could tell when the kids are watching Disney Plus or uh, Netflix or whatever is running on there. And then within some of those apps, the integration is set up where it'll tell me the individual program they're watching. So you can have that just say you could create a dashboard. You can have that where you can see it, and then you can also click on it and say tell it to do this. So if you lost a Roku remote, or if you don't like the remote, you can turn your tablet into your Roku remote within HomeAssistant. So you can have a separate page for your Roku, and you can go in there and say, have big buttons that just says Netflix and Disney Plus and Paramount and all your apps. You can have them right on there, and whenever you click that, then it says now tells Roku to then turn on the TV and start playing this item. You can either say bring up that app, or you can. I know within Plex you can go through and say individual videos. You can say videos or music, and say start playing it on that player or that Roku. I don't know how well it works for the other apps, but it does work for Plex.
Any other questions?
I want to say one other thing is thinking about, you can go back to that history, and this is where the whole looking at the devices or looking at your house and I can't think of the word, not monetize, but you can look how everything is. So how people that would have a smartwatch and that wants to see how many steps they're taking every day, you'd be interested in maybe looking at I can bring up, setting up the temperature, but I can bring up my thermostat, and I can see have I ever changed, or when's the last time that I changed the temp to go up? When does the the furnace run? So I can say for the last, I can look at 24-hour period of time and say how many times has my furnace ran, and then maybe if I drop the temp down, it's going to run less. They always say if you run it 2 degrees cooler, then you're going to save 20% on your energy bill. Well, this is the actual. You can look at the numbers, see how many times it runs.
It's called quantifying. The
Quantified
quantified self, yeah.
Yes. So that's what I like about the history method. Yeah, and then there's other. I've seen people that have set up, other kind of graphing setups, and I think, you could do all sorts of Googling. People set up really cool dashboards, and they'll have all these fancy graphs that you can have set up and running. And that's where you might need to have more of a server running to be able to do that powered for graphing, or have it running on something separate that can connect into it. But it's a lot of fun.
You know what I'm most impressed by, Tony?
What's
You
that?
being able to control the weather.
That's right. You could say
make tomorrow sunny for us, okay?
right.
I'm putting in a rain override, unfortunately.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we? Well, if not, thank you so much, Tony. This is very informative and interesting. And
You're welcome.
I did not realize. I mean, I have a tertiary understanding of all this stuff. I didn't realize how much control over this stuff you had, and especially with all the various gigaws and gizmos, as far as like the one with the washing machine, and using something that will actually just check and see if the power on it is less or whatnot. That I would never have thought to do that. I'd be sitting there trying to figure out how to get this stupid little not Ethernet device doing all that other wonderful stuff.
somebody's made a YouTube video to make so many things. So there's
Yeah.
quite a few channels out there that are dedicated just to people running a Home Assistant and how their dashboards and how their automations work. So that's that would be a great thing to start with. Watching what other people are doing, and that's a lot of how I learned also.
That's very cool. Thank you.